All India Radio presents Morning News. Good morning. I am Sarabjit Kaur and with me is Saira Mujtaba. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India has exciting opportunities for investment in urbanization. Prime Minister speaks to US President-elect Joe Biden. Two leaders agree to advance Indo-US strategic partnership. BRICS nations adopt new counter-terrorism strategy to effectively deal with the menace. Japan and Australia sign landmark defense deal to counter China's growing influence in South China Sea. And FIFA cancels Women's Under-17 Football World Cup. India to host 2022 edition. As the nation fights the COVID-19 pandemic, we begin with a message of precaution to stay safe and protected by following these three simple steps. Wear a face mask, maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing, focus on hand and face hygiene. Now the news. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said India has exciting opportunities for investment in urbanization, mobility and innovation. He said these opportunities come along with a vibrant democracy, a business-friendly climate, a huge market and a government which will leave no stone unturned to make India a preferred global investment destination. Speaking at the Bloomberg New Economy Forum yesterday, Mr. Modi said it is time to think about post-COVID requirements of the world and called for rejuvenization of urban centers.
If you are looking to invest in urbanization, India has exciting opportunities for you. If you are looking to invest in mobility, India has exciting opportunities for you. If you are looking to invest in innovation, India has exciting opportunities for you. If you are looking to invest sustainable solutions, India has exciting opportunities for you. These opportunities come along with a vibrant democracy, a business-friendly climate, a huge market and a government which shall have not stone unturned to make India a preferred global investment destination.
Mr. Modi said the pandemic has shown that cities which were growth engines are also vulnerable zones.
We are at a very important point in our history. More than half of the world's citizens already live in urban areas. Over the next 2 decades, India and some of the African nations are going to witness the biggest wave of urbanization. But the COVID-19 pandemic has posed enormous challenges before the world. It has shown us that cities which were our growth engines are also our vulnerable zones.
The Prime Minister said Make in India push had led to development of tremendous indigenous capacity for production of transportation systems. He said it is going to help push the sustainable transport goals in a big way. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said terrorism is the biggest problem in the world today. He stressed that countries that give protection and support to terrorists must be held accountable. The Prime Minister was addressing the 12th BRICS Summit via video conference last evening.
आतंकवाद आज विश्व के सामने सबसे बड़ी समस्या है. हमें यह सुनिश्चित करना होगा कि आतंकवादियों को समर्थन और सहायता देने वाले देशों को भी दोषी ठहराया जाए और इस समस्या का संगठित तरीके से मुकाबला किया जाए. हमें खुशी है कि रूस की अध्यक्षता के दौरान ब्रिक्स काउंटर टेररिज्म स्ट्रेटेजी को अंतिम रूप दे दिया गया है. यह एक महत्वपूर्ण उपलब्धि है और भारत इस कार्य को अपनी अध्यक्षता के दौरान और आगे बढ़ाएगा.
The Prime Minister expressed happiness that under Russia's leadership, BRICS counter-terrorism strategy has been given final touch. He said India will take it forward during its leadership. He added that during its leadership of BRICS, India will promote digital health and traditional medicine among BRICS countries. The Prime Minister highlighted that due to the strength of its pharma sector, India was able to provide medicines to over 150 countries during COVID lockdown period. He said countries' vaccine production and delivery ability will help mankind in the same way. The Prime Minister emphasized that reforms in the UN Security Council are very important. He said India expects support from BRICS partners on this issue.
भारत का मानना है कि यूएन सिक्योरिटी काउंसिल में रिफॉर्म्स बहुत ही अनिवार्य है। इस विषय पर हमें अपने ब्रिक्स पार्टनर्स के समर्थन की अपेक्षा है। यूएन के अतिरिक्त कई अन्य अंतर्राष्ट्रीय संस्थाएं भी वर्तमान वास्तविकताओं के अनुसार काम नहीं कर रहे हैं। डब्ल्यूटीओ, आईएमएफ, डब्ल्यूएचओ जैसे इंस्टीट्यूशंस में भी सुधार होना चाहिए।
The Prime Minister stated that India has been a core supporter of multilateralism and the entire world is considered a family in Indian tradition. The five-nation grouping BRICS has adopted a new counter-terrorism strategy to effectively deal with terrorism. The objective of BRICS counter-terrorism cooperation is to complement and strengthen the existing bilateral and multilateral ties among the BRICS countries and to make a meaningful contribution to the global efforts of preventing and combating the threat of terrorism. The BRICS countries reaffirmed that terrorism in all its forms and manifestations constitutes one of the most serious threats to international peace and security, and that any act of terrorism committed is a crime and has no justification. The BRICS countries aim to strengthen their unity in countering international terrorism and its financing.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to US President-elect Joe Biden and congratulated him. During the telephonic conversation, the two leaders agreed to advance Indo-US strategic partnership. They reiterated their firm commitment to the Indo-US strategic partnership and discussed the shared priorities and concerns, COVID-19 pandemic, climate change and cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. The Prime Minister also conveyed warm congratulations to US Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. Mr. Modi said her success is a matter of great pride and inspiration for members of the vibrant Indian-American community, who are a tremendous source of strength for Indo-US relations. The government said that deaths per million population due to COVID-19 in India is amongst the lowest in the world and stands at 94 deaths per million population in the country. Briefing the media in New Delhi yesterday, Secretary in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Rajesh Bhushan, said that recovered cases have crossed 82,90,000 and recovery rate stands at 93.43%.
अगर केवल पिछले सप्ताह के आंकड़ों को देखें विश्व भर में तो हमारे देश में 211 नए केस हो रहे हैं प्रति मिलियन पॉपुलेशन, जबकि अनेक देश ऐसे हैं जहां ये 2500 या 3000 से भी ज्यादा प्रति मिलियन नए केसेस हुए पिछले एक सप्ताह में। उसी प्रकार से यदि हम मृत्यु को देखें तो हमारे देश में 94 प्रति मिलियन है, जो कि अभी भी विश्व के काफी कम मृत्यु वाले देशों में से है।
Elaborating more about the action taken in view of COVID-19 cases in Delhi, Niti Aayog member Dr. V.K. Paul said that 3,500 ICU beds are currently available in Delhi, which will increase to 6,000 ICU beds in the next few days.
हमारे अस्पतालों में जो इंटेंसिव केयर यूनिट है उनका बेड स्ट्रेंथ को बढ़ाया जाए। जो एक एग्जिस्टिंग कैपेसिटी कल परसों तक 3500 आईसीयू बेड की थी लगभग, तो पूरी कोशिश है कि अगले 3-4 दिन के अंदर ये कैपेसिटी 6000 आईसीयू बेड से भी ऊपर चली जाएगी। यूनियन गवर्नमेंट, दिल्ली सरकार और प्राइवेट सेक्टर ये मिलकर संभव करेंगे और इसका बहुत हद तक काम हो भी गया है।
On vaccine development, he said the vaccine of Serum Institute is in the third phase. He said at least 5 vaccines are under trial in the country, of which 2 are in the third phase.
In Chhattisgarh, the number of deaths due to COVID-19 has risen during the past 2 weeks. Coronavirus claimed more than 200 lives in the state during the last 15 days. A report on this.
Chhattisgarh Chief Secretary R.P. Mandal has expressed concern over the increasing number of deaths due to COVID-19 in the state and directed the authorities to pay special attention to rapid COVID tests. During a review meeting held in the state capital Raipur, the Chief Secretary said that in most of the cases it has been observed that the patient has died within 24 hours of hospitalization. The Chief Secretary has asked all district collectors to ensure COVID testing as per that target and also the availability of sufficient number of beds with oxygen facility in district hospitals. The Chief Secretary has also directed to conduct an intensive awareness campaign to motivate the people to adopt COVID-appropriate behavior. Vikalp Shukla, AIR News, Raipur.
Gujarat recorded 1,125 new cases during the last 24 hours. Our correspondent reports recovery rate has further improved to 91.45%.
The number of total cases of COVID-19 detected so far in Gujarat has crossed the 1,90,000 mark. Out of these, 1,74,088 patients recovered. 1,116 patients recovered during the last 24 hours. More than 69,23,000 tests have been carried out in the state till date. Maximum 234 new cases reported from Ahmedabad, while Surat recorded 180 new cases. At present, total active cases in the state are 12,458, out of which 74 patients are on ventilator. 7 patients died yesterday, taking the total death due to COVID-19 up to 3,815. Yogesh Pandya, AIR News, Ahmedabad.
Universities and degree colleges across Uttar Pradesh will reopen from 23rd of this month. State government has issued orders regarding this in tandem with the recent notification issued by the University Grants Commission. The order allows only with 50% attendance of students on roster basis, and a maximum of 200 students can attend the class at any given time. The universities and colleges in the state have been closed since March in view of the COVID-19 pandemic. The higher educational institutions have been asked to resume classes in a phased manner to avoid crowding on campuses. All students have to wear masks, use hand sanitizers, and maintain social distancing to prevent spread of the virus. All students are required to download the Arogya Setu app. Students, teachers and staffers living in containment zones will not be allowed in the institutions. Meanwhile, World Health Organization WHO has praised the state government for its COVID-19 management strategy and termed it as a good example for other states to follow. More details from our correspondent.
In an official statement, the global health body appreciated the efforts made by Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath and his government for the management of COVID-19, especially in tracking high-risk contacts. Principal Secretary Health Alok Kumar said that as on date, state is identifying and testing 13 unique contacts per COVID positive case. The statement from WHO says that more than 70,000 frontline health workers worked across the state to reach out to high-risk contacts of positive cases. The survey was conducted in August month and the success rate was 93% in tracing the contacts of positive patients. Meanwhile, district administration in many cities have appealed to people who have recently returned from National Capital Region Delhi to undergo the COVID test as early as possible. It has been advised in the backdrop of the growing COVID cases in Delhi. Sushil Chandra Tiwari, AIR News, Lucknow.
In Tamil Nadu, the number of COVID-19 patients under treatment has further dipped to 15,085. With the situation improving, the famous tourist destination in the state, Kodaikanal, has fully opened up for the guests since yesterday. More from our correspondent.
Kodaikanal is one of the most famous all-weather hill resort towns in the country. For the past 2 months, guests were allowed only partially in a few places there due to the COVID-19-led restrictions. They included the 3 farms and parks like the Bryan Park being managed by the State Horticulture Department and the Cocos Park. The other scenic places being administered by the Forest Department remained closed so far. However, the officials have reopened them also now, including the Moyer Point, Pine Forest and the Guna Caves. With this, the whole assortment of about 35 picnic spots there has become accessible for tourists. It is the latest to join the tourist places in Tamil Nadu to have full access for guests. Jai Singh, AIR News, Chennai.
In Orissa, COVID-19 recovery cases have crossed the 3 lakh mark. On the other hand, the cumulative COVID tally of the state has risen to 3,10,052. A report.
The statewide COVID-19 fresh infections stood at 644 yesterday, which is fewer than what individual districts like Khordha alone used to report on any single day during the last week of September last. This apart, COVID-19 contraction is visible across all the 30 districts of the state, with the number of fresh infections being as low as 1 each in districts like Koraput and Raigada, to an intraday high of 73 cases in Khordha. At least 10 districts reported cases below 10 each yesterday, thereby aiding to the offloading of the COVID-19 active caseload down to about 9,000. Girish Chandra Das, CIR News, Bhubaneswar.
Talking to All India Radio, medical expert Dr. Narendra said that the rising cases of coronavirus is leading to depression and other mental problems. He said COVID-19 is affecting people of all age groups.
ये जो डिप्रेसिव आपने एंजाइटी ये बच्चों में है और सभी तरह की पॉपुलेशन में हो रहा है ये कोरोना का इफेक्ट। जैसे जैसे कोरोना के केसेस बढ़ रहे हैं, ऑलमोस्ट 1 साल हो गया कोरोना को आए हुए, अभी भी हम इसके बारे में नई नई चीजें पता लग रहा है हमें। तो क्लिनिकल सिम्टम्स में हमने देखा कि ज्यादातर अमूमन जितने बुखार होते हैं, दर्द होती है, थोड़ा बहुत बुखार आता है, लेकिन इसमें हम देख रहे हैं कि नए नए तरीके की चीजें मालूम चल रही है, जैसे टेस्ट का पता न लगना, स्वाद का पता न लगना, डिप्रेशन, एंजाइटी, न्यूरोसिस, तो ये देखा गया और बच्चों में खासतौर पे देखा गया, लेकिन मैं कहूंगा कि बड़ों में भी ये देखे जा रहे हैं। सर्वे किया गया था 18% लोगों को कोई ना कोई मेंटल इलनेस की प्रॉब्लम है।
You are listening to the morning news on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India has exciting opportunities for investment in urbanization. Prime Minister speaks to US President-elect Joe Biden. Two leaders agree to advance Indo-US strategic partnership. BRICS nations adopt new counter-terrorism strategy to effectively deal with the menace. Japan and Australia sign landmark defense deal to counter China's growing influence in South China Sea. And FIFA cancels Women's Under-17 Football World Cup, India to host 2022 edition. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle @AIR News Alerts.
News Services Division of All India Radio brings to you program Employment News in association with the Publications Division, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. An effective platform for information on job vacancies, training programs, admission notices, results and career advice with experts. Every day at 4:20 p.m. on FM Gold and other frequencies and on our YouTube channel AIR News Official. चलो मिलकर एक शुरुआत करें, चलो एक फैसला आज करें, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे, चलो एक इरादा करते हैं, चलो खुद से वादा करते हैं, मास्क नहीं तो टोकेंगे, कोरोना को रोकेंगे।
Welcome back to the morning news. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga and his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison have signed a landmark defense deal in a bid to counter China's growing influence in the South China Sea and over the Pacific Island nations. Reciprocal Access Agreement RAA comes weeks after foreign ministers of the Quad Alliance, which includes the US and India, met in Tokyo. The pact allows Japanese and Australian troops to visit each other's countries and conduct training and joint operations. Australian Prime Minister said that the treaty will strengthen their security ties and facilitate cooperation between defence forces. The joint statement said the two sides also agreed on the need for a framework to allow Japanese military to protect Australian forces if needed. It also expressed serious concern about the situation in the South China Sea and reconfirmed their strong opposition to any coercive or unilateral attempts to change the status quo and thereby increase tensions in the region. Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, is a multilateral organization and it should not be a forum where bilateral issues will be solved. SCO Secretary General Vladimir Norov said this at a press conference in Beijing on the results of the recently concluded SCO summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in his address at the SCO summit last week, highlighted that attempts are being made to unnecessarily bring bilateral issues in the SCO agenda, which is in violation of the SCO Charter and Shanghai spirit. SCO Secretary General Vladimir Norov has said that economic cooperation will be in focus at the upcoming SCO Council of Heads of Government under India's chairmanship on 30th of November. He was addressing a press conference in Beijing on the results of the recently concluded SCO summit. Our Beijing correspondent reports that, citing Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Mr. Norov said that with economic multilateralism and national capacity building, the SCO countries will be able to overcome the crisis of economic losses caused by the pandemic.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate Bengaluru Tech Summit 2020 tomorrow through video conferencing. The theme of the summit is Next is Now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Luxembourg counterpart Xavier Bettel will hold a virtual summit tomorrow. This will be the first stand-alone summit meeting between India and Luxembourg in the past 2 decades. The leaders will discuss the entire spectrum of bilateral relationship, including strengthening of India-Luxembourg cooperation in the post-COVID world.
Press Information Bureau has clarified that recent reports related to India-China border standoff in Ladakh, published in some parts of the media, are fake. It said some international news portals have published misleading headlines and reported baseless claims related to India-China border standoff in Ladakh. PIB also said that the Indian Army has clarified that no such incident has taken place. In view of its weak financials, the Reserve Bank has placed the Lakshmi Vilas Bank Limited under moratorium with immediate effect. RBI said the moratorium will be effective for 30 days with a view to protect depositors' interest. Accordingly, RBI has capped all cash withdrawals from the bank to 25,000 rupees.
The Reserve Bank of India has announced the names of 2 startups that have been selected as part of its regulatory sandbox program. The RBI said it has shortlisted 6 companies out of 32 entities that had applied for the test phase of the first cohort. The 2 companies are Jaipur-based National Support Consultancy Services Private Limited and New Delhi-based Nuclear Software Exports Limited. Telangana has communicated its acceptance for option 1 out of the 2 options suggested by the Finance Ministry to meet the shortfall in revenue arising out of GST implementation. The state has now joined 22 other states and 3 union territories who have opted for this option.
The 4-day celebrations of Chhath Puja began today in different parts of the country with the traditional Nahai Khai ceremony. Puja will conclude on Saturday morning after paying obeisance to the rising sun. Chhath Puja is celebrated to worship the sun god and thank him for supporting life on earth.
हम तो से पूरी बरतिया है बरतिया से कितना लागी से करलू छठ बरतिया से कितना लागी से करलू छठ बरतिया से कितना लागी.
In Bihar, elaborate arrangements have been made at various sun temples, including at Aurangabad, Nalanda and Patna. With an aim to prevent the spread of coronavirus infection, Mumbai's civic body has said that it will not allow Chhath Puja at beaches and river banks. We have a report on this.
The civic body said the decision has been taken as it will be impossible for people to maintain adequate social distancing and other COVID norms if allowed to gather near water bodies. It said concerned officials will permit limited public gatherings at artificial ponds so that people can offer prayers to the sun god. Additional Municipal Commissioner Suresh Kakani has said that necessary medical teams equipped with PPE and testing kits will be placed at different locations where artificial ponds have been set up. Devapriya Bhattacharjee, AIR AIR News, Mumbai.
Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has ordered officials to make arrangements for clean ghats and other facilities for the devotees who gather at the banks of various rivers.
Railway Protection Force RPF has started an intensive awareness drive called Meri Saheli, aiming to provide better safety and security to women passengers in Madhya Pradesh. Our correspondent has filed this report.
To provide proactive security to female passengers, a team of lady constables led by an inspector has been formed in most of the railway stations including Bhopal, Jabalpur and Itarsi. Bhopal DRM Uday Vorvankar told AIR that the teams are interacting with the female passengers at railway stations and briefing them about all precautions to be taken during the journey. The passengers are also being informed about the RPF helpline number 182 for emergency and for instant help from RPF. The mobile number of the Security Control of Bhopal Division is 2, shared with the female passengers. Moreover, all the ladies, including the other travelling passengers, have been requested to wear mask properly to avoid spreading of COVID-19. Sanjeev Sharma, AIR News, Bhopal.
Education Minister Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank virtually launched Leelavati Award 2020, AICTE's innovative education program to empower women yesterday. With women empowerment as the theme, the objective of the award is to create awareness about issues like sanitation, hygiene, health, nutrition, literacy and employment among women.
As a tribute to the legendary Bengali actor Soumitra Chatterjee, Films Division will be screening his biopic Soumitra Revisited today. The artist passed away on Sunday at the age of 85. The documentaries will be streamed on www.filmsdivision.org. Women's Under-17 Football World Cup in India, which was initially postponed to next year due to COVID-19 pandemic, was cancelled by FIFA yesterday, but India was handed the hosting rights of the 2022 edition. The FIFA cancelled both the Women's Under-17 World Cup and Under-20 World Cup, which were scheduled to be held in India and Costa Rica respectively, but handed both the countries the hosting rights of the 2022 editions.
In tennis, Dominic Thiem defeated 20-time Grand Slam champion Rafael Nadal in straight sets at the ATP Finals in London yesterday. World number 3 Thiem of Austria clinched a victory over world number 2 Spaniard Nadal.
And now let us take a look at the weather forecast for today. The national capital will have moderate fog and mist in the morning, and later the sky will be mainly clear. The minimum temperature was 14 degrees Celsius, maximum will be around 25 degrees Celsius. Delhi's air quality continues to remain in moderate category. Gilgit will have partly cloudy sky, becoming generally partly cloudy with temperatures hovering between 0 and 18 degrees Celsius. In Muzaffarabad, mainly clear sky, becoming partly cloudy towards afternoon or evening. Temperatures will hover between 5 and 20 degrees Celsius. Mumbai will observe sunny day. Minimum temperature in the metropolis was 25 degrees Celsius. Maximum will be around 35 degrees Celsius.
And now an overview of today's newspapers. Most newspapers today open up with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's address at the BRICS Summit. Quoting the Prime Minister, the Asian Age writes, "Countries that support terror must be held to account." As the capital struggles to tame a rising wave of COVID-19 infection, Delhi seeks curbs at wedding markets, writes Hindustan Times. As COVID situation in Delhi turns worrisome, government unveils a slew of measures to tackle the situation. Government bets big on India-made COVID vaccines, states the Hindu. After remaining in the very poor and severe category for days, rain, wind helped clear up Delhi's air to moderate, informs the Pioneer. In the wake of electoral performances, Congress in charges of Bihar, Gujarat offered to resign over poll debacle, writes Hindustan Times. It's time again for the mega exercise. Second phase of Malabar exercise begin in northern Arabian Sea, writes the Statesman. And finally, the Economic Times has a rare picture of the only known white giraffe in the arid savanna in Kenya near the Somalia border. It has been fitted with a GPS tracking device to help protect it from poachers.
And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi says India has exciting opportunities for investment in urbanization. Prime Minister speaks to US President-elect Joe Biden. Two leaders agree to advance Indo-US strategic partnership. BRICS nations adopt new counter-terrorism strategy to effectively deal with the menace. Japan and Australia sign landmark defense deal to counter China's growing influence in South China Sea. And FIFA cancels Women's Under-17 Football World Cup, India to host 2022 edition. And with that, we end the morning news. Have a nice day.